Okay, we wanted to make a quick video about the allegations that were made against myself and Suzanne Delaney yesterday when the Fine Gael propaganda tour came to town with the Taoiseach and the Minister for Justice. So let me bring in Suzanne Delaney here. Hello, Suzanne.
Hi there. How are you?
Great. Okay, so some things were printed in the Irish Independent today, and we would like to have a little chat about them. So let me bring up the first piece of this article here. Former Taoiseach Enda Kenny was accosted in the street and filmed by a woman shouting about migration in Market Square, Castlebar, County Mayo. The former Taoiseach held his own phone up and calmly asked the irate woman what she understood about the issue. The woman was accompanied by local election candidate Stephen Kerr, founder of the online media outlet The Irish Inquiry, who is an outspoken anti-migration activist. Okay, so there's some problems with this. First of all, I'm not an outspoken anti-migration activist. I'm against the uncontrolled mass immigration into our country. I'm all for controlled immigration. And secondly, I want to bring up this point here where she refers to Suzanne as an irate woman. The Taoiseach asking what she understood about the issue. Now, that's not what happened at all. Let me bring up the clip here of the interaction between Suzanne, myself, and the former Taoiseach Enda Kenny. Have we chat with us? Have we chat? Come on.
You will go on.
Go on.
What do you want to chat about?
I want to chat about the current mass
happy about the way
policy.
things are going in the country.
What do you think
It's great to help people, but it's not about humanitarian duty at all, is it? You know, there's children up in that sports centre in Brafey that are in windowless rooms. We're in windowless rooms.
Okay, so
do you understand that? What happens if a fire breaks out in that centre? Can any of you answer me? What happens if a fire breaks out in that centre? Children in windowless rooms, and you say you care about these children? Well, it has no proper fire cert. So do you want to tell us what will happen to children there?
Do you know what services we have here?
Do you want to tell us what will happen? Can you answer the question?
Do you know what services we have here?
Can you answer the question?
Do you know what services we have?
Can you answer the question?
You don't want to answer the question, do you?
Can you answer the question?
Keep that up.
Can you answer the question?
Mr. Kenny.
Yeah. You wouldn't care less if those children burnt to death. None of you would.
Okay, so that's our interaction with former Taoiseach Enda Kenny. That happened yesterday in Castlebar. As you could see, we didn't accost him on the street. We asked him, could we have a chat? He took us up on that invitation to have a chat and then wouldn't address Suzanne's question that she put to him about the accommodation that some of these migrant children are living in the Brafey IPAS Centre. Suzanne, what's your comments on what happened yesterday with Enda Kenny and how it was reported?
Okay, well, I did cut across you when you went to talk to him. Sorry about that. But what people wouldn't be aware of is that I was assaulted basically moments before by somebody who is very well connected to a high-level member of Fine Gael. And this person didn't want to be on camera, but they kept following me. So she assaulted me in front of guards as well. Evan obviously has an agenda because she witnessed all of this. She didn't report that. She's reported that we're basically racist and xenophobic, more or less. And why hasn't she said what I was actually saying to Enda Kenny, which is that children are in windowless rooms and have no escape route during a fire, have no sunlight in their rooms? Why wouldn't she report that?
Good question. Well, that seems to be the way they operate, isn't it?
This is to undermine us, particularly you, because you were named. This is to undermine us on the run up to the election, and this Evan obviously is very biased, which is no surprise. We know most journalists are.
Yes, indeed. So let me play another report. This time it's from Midwest Radio, and this is about again the interaction with ourselves and Enda Kenny yesterday. This is a question that was put to the Taoiseach Simon Harris.
Part of the disruption to your arrival into Castlebar came from people who were shouting about conditions in asylum seeker centres.
I don't accept that at all. Part of my disruption in Castlebar came from people engaged in thinly veiled thuggery. That's absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with migration policy, and we should never, ever conflate the two. The people of Ireland are fundamentally decent. I see it when I travel around communities, villages, towns and cities. And what they want to see are two things align: compassion and common sense. They have compassion. They want to help people. They help people in this county. People have helped so many people. We are better for immigration. There's no doubt about that. Look at our health service, look at our cafes, look at our hospitality sector. I tell you, I wouldn't like to see a country without immigration because, quite frankly, many of our public services would grind to a halt. How do you accommodate?
Okay, so we leave it there. That was the gist. So our interaction, is he talking about us there? Thinly veiled thuggery?
Yeah, he's talking about us, and he's called for a police investigation. Actually, the police are investigating what went on yesterday. I'm sure they won't be investigating how I was assaulted. But you know, that also brings up the issue of a separation of powers issue here that Simon Harris called upon the guards to investigate. I'm not really sure he should be doing that. They should just be doing their job of their own accord without instruction from himself. But yeah, and just, she did actually quite fairly to this lady ask him, or put it to him that he was being challenged, or they were being challenged upon the conditions in the asylum centre, which is what we raised, as we said, about the children. And he deflected from that completely. Obviously, she wasn't going to say what we said because we've made an allegation and she doesn't have any proof of it, but we will put up footage to show that this is the case. And as for services, when Enda Kenny said, do you know about services? Well, services surely begin with having windows that you can escape through during a fire. Like these, we got to remember here, they go on about arson attacks all the time on empty buildings with nobody in them. This is a problem. But putting children in windowless rooms that are pitch black when you close the doors, no problem.
They've all been made aware of it now. So let's see who's going to be held to account if something ever happens like that, and hopefully it never does, obviously. Okay, we'll show some footage in a couple of minutes from those IPAS centres in Brafey with the windowless rooms. But just to say before that, it wasn't just myself and Suzanne who bumped into the Fine Gael propaganda tour yesterday in Castlebar. The Burkes were there, Enoch Burke's family, and obviously they had some questions for the Minister for Justice and the Taoiseach about his ongoing imprisonment. The only interaction, we had no direct interaction with the Taoiseach or with the Minister for Justice. We would have liked to, but the Burkes, were putting their questions, and they have their own concerns and their own issues, and we let them raise those with those people. The only people we had interaction with was Enda Kenny, former Taoiseach, as you've just seen a second ago, and also a reporter from Virgin Media, which we'll show in a minute. These are the only interactions we had yesterday, and we're going to show all of those, and people can make up their mind as to what our behaviour was like. Suzanne, before I go on and show this footage of the IPAS centres, anything else you want to jump in on so far?
No, but just to say, some people have probably already seen some of the Virgin Media footage, but we do have more footage.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll show that in a couple of minutes. And before we do, let me just put up this footage from the IPAS centre. Okay, so this is just a walk around here. You can feel free to comment, Suzanne. I'm not sure if it's a bit glitchy for you or if you'll be able to comment when the video is playing, but you can see here there's no windows in any of these rooms.
Yeah, like how are people meant to get out of here in a fire? How are children meant to get out of here in a fire? Aside from anything else, it's cruel and inhumane to have anybody, any child, in rooms where there's no sunlight, and it can't be good for your mental health or your physical health for that matter. No toilets, no showers. If there's a lot of in this, we know there's an issue with men coming in, and that 85% of people coming in are economic migrants. We get that, but there are a few centres where there are children and women, single parent families. They have to go to the toilet during the night. They have to make their way down the stairs. A lot of the security staff are not fettered. These toilets and showers here, this is showing them before this centre was actually opened up, so they're nice and clean. But we've since had reports that these toilets and showers are filthy and are spreading disease and infection and viruses.
Yeah. So they're the conditions that these vulnerable people are living in down in Brafey House.
Some people might not be wondering why are we focusing on this, and think that somehow means that we're not concerned with what's going on in the country, and we'll sort of fight till the bitter end on that side of things. But it is, as I said before, important to call out the lie that all of this is built on, which is that, the government cares about these people and the media cares about these people, when they actually don't. They would never live in those conditions themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Taoiseach, the Minister for Justice, the former Taoiseach there, the owner of Brafey House, who's a millionaire living over in Malaysia, Tom Gilligan, Director of Service of Mayo County Council, that's the line that they trot out all the time, doing our humanitarian duty, humanitarian effort. Absolutely rubbish. It's all about money. It's all about profit. And these people are just being used, and our country is being abused. And we're all going to pay the price for that.
And Irish people are being sent to stay in these IPAS centres now as well. I've had people contact me and say that, and they can have their rooms. Like there's unvetted security staff saying, I can check your room in the middle of the night. And these are professional working Irish people who have good jobs. One of them works for the government, and they're living in an IPAS centre.
Shocking, really. Now, let me bring up another little bit from that Irish Independent article today. Fine Gael councillor Ger Deere described the scenes witnessed in Castlebar as deeply upsetting and shocking. It is shameful what happened here today, he said. What's also shameful, obviously, is the conditions that all these people are living in these IPAS centre, which Ger Deere knows well.
Yeah, because he's there all the time.
He's there all the time, and let me just bring up this and show you what he's been up to there. He's been canvassing there. He's been canvassing there for weeks. Obviously, Gerard's very involved with the tidy towns, Castlebar tidy towns, and he'd have a lot of the international protection applicants out every Saturday, giving them a sense of purpose by getting them to clean up our rubbish around the town, as he says. And he's actively been using some of these IPAS residents to canvass for him in the IPAS centre and the Ukrainian refugee centre around Brafey and around Moaning and Castlebar. So Ger knows all about the conditions down there, but never bothers to raise it.
Yeah, isn't that phenomenal? This man is clearly using these people to get votes, and he knows full well what conditions those children are living in, and he says nothing. He's in there all the time, and he says nothing. And yes, all these people have this like little white savior complex, which is actually rather racist. So Ger Deere is on the Tidy Towns Committee, and he has all the African people going around picking up the rubbish. What could be more racist than saying, I've given these African people a sense of purpose because they're now picking up the rubbish in our town? What could be more racist than that? It's disgusting and repellent. This man is, to me, disgusting and repellent and self-serving and doesn't care about these people at all.
Yeah, he sure is. I agree with you there. And here Ger is again. This is at the Fine Gael propaganda tour yesterday. They wouldn't let us see what was going on inside. So Ger is trying to block us there from seeing. It's a Fine Gael membership party only, it seems. No members of the public allowed, and only selected members of the press. The ones that ask the easy questions, no doubt. So there you go. That's a look inside. I think it's Cup of Joe. I think that's Cup of Joe there. It's his place there that they're using. But
he's trying to get his little brownie points there with the Taoiseach, the de facto Taoiseach, by the way. Trying to get his little brownie points in, look at me, covering a tiny portion of the window with a menu.
Was it with the menu? Was it a menu or was it his flyer? I don't know. Oh, yeah, it was a menu.
A menu or a flyer, I don't know. But either way, I mean, it's not very effective, is it? The window's huge.
No. Now, so finally, we had this interaction here with a journalist.
You don't report on all the children that are going missing. 24 migrant children in the month of January alone. How come RTE and Virgin Media don't report on those children going missing? What do you think they're going missing for? Wouldn't be sex trafficking by any chance?
Do you know anything about sex trafficking, lads?
Child sex trafficking? Do you know that open, uncontrolled border supports sex trafficking of children and adults?
Okay, so that's Suzanne there pointing out some of the issues with missing children, a lot of migrant missing children, and the mainstream media, their refusal to report on these issues. Now, some people will give out to us and say, why are we going after the reporters? They're only doing their job, they're only reporting what they're told to report. But at the same time, if we keep pointing it out to them, what they're failing to report, well, maybe at some point their conscience might get the better of them and they might consider their job and how they make their money. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Well, they can't all be just. I think a lot of these people are a bit self-serving and they just get well paid and they're in a cushy number and they're doing what they're told and they're just following orders and whatever else. But hopefully we might at least make them feel a bit guilty. We need to be raising this issue about the missing children because nobody else is. And it's very telling that Eva Murray didn't report that in the Independent. She did report that we asked about missing children, but she failed to report any basic stats on that, which are all readily available. So these two guys, one of them works for RTE. His name has escaped me, and the other guy is Paul Quinn. And they choose to report the way they do. They don't have to do what they're doing. They don't have to report concerned people as far right. They don't have to report lies or mistruths or hide the truth about migrant crime, which is becoming undeniably more prevalent, stranger attacks in particular.
Yeah. Let's continue with your question of this reporter, Paul Quinn.
Or you might report on the fact that up here at the sports centre in Brafey, the children are in windowless rooms, and when you close the door, the rooms are dark, pitch black in fact. If a fire breaks out in one of those places, what do you think is going to happen to those children?
Why didn't you report on that?
They have unvetted security staff there. They can go into people's rooms in the middle of the night anytime they like. Lots of vulnerable women there with young children. No toilets.
You're just a mouthpiece for the government.
No showers or toilets in their windowless bedrooms. How about you report on the fact that the owner of that hotel is living in Malaysia and is making millions off of the backs of these people? And we're supposed to be the bad people here. We're supposed to be the far right people.
I think he looks a little bit chastened. I think he looks a little bit scolded, and he does turn to directly face me when I say about the children in the rooms with no windows. And I wonder, was he going to say something? Did he want to say something because that I was annoying him and he wanted to lash out at me? Or did something I say, that's probably wishful thinking on my part, but did something I said there, strike home? But that doesn't mean he's going to behave any differently. These people are not going to give up their jobs. And, once again, we're just trying to highlight the fact that all of this humanitarian duty stuff is a lie. And we would really encourage people to be highlighting that because, you might not agree with us highlighting the fact that children are in these windowless rooms. You may or may not agree with that. But we want to do that anyway. That's the right thing to do. That doesn't take away from what else we're doing. But it does help to dismantle this whole lie that everything is built on. By showing they don't care.
Absolutely, they don't care at all. And finally, I'll just play the very last bit. And by the way, this is the extent of all the interaction we had with people yesterday. So let me just play the very final clip here.
And the guy, the guy in Sligo, the man who got the knife in the eye, that man's not happy with your interview. Someone who's part of your gay community and is a victim. And he was not happy with your interview. Do you know why he might not be happy? Maybe because the interview was orchestrated to ask particular questions and to leave out others.
Okay, there you go. That's the extent of all the interactions we had yesterday. You can let us know what you think. Did we go too far? Some people will say we went too far. Some will say we didn't go far enough. I'm sure that's the way it'll always be. But just give us a little bit of context there, what you were asking Paul Quinn about there at the end, Suzanne.
So I was talking about Yusuf Palani and the interview with Anthony Burke, who was the victim who survived. He was the first victim, and if the police had have acted on his information, the other two men wouldn't have died and wouldn't have been tortured. Paul Quinn was selected for this interview because he's gay, and Anthony Burke is gay. And it was a very carefully constructed interview, and it left out pertinent questions about Yusuf Palani's motivations that were related to his religion. And I think think it also very important to point out here that the guards are investigating for the Taoiseach being jostled and pushed. And we want to say we had absolutely nothing to do with that. We were nowhere near him. They're trying to kind of make it appear in the Irish Independent like we may have had something to do with that, and we absolutely didn't.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I said already, that's the extent of all the interaction we had with anybody yesterday. We couldn't really get too close to the Taoiseach or to the Minister for Justice, or Maria Walsh, the MEP candidate, because, as I say earlier, the Burkes were there and they wanted to raise some questions about their son Enoch, who continues to be locked up in prison. So that's really it on that. We just wanted to have our say on how the media reported that. Is there anything else you want to add before we conclude, Suzanne?
Not really, no. I mean, from a distance, I did shout to Helen McEntee that she should be ashamed of herself and that kind of thing, but we didn't get close enough to them. As you said, we wanted to step back and let the Burke family have their say because their son is in prison. We didn't want to be taking over. And, if there was any violence, we didn't have anything to do with it.
No, absolutely not. So anyway...
Sorry, one more thing. I just wanted to say I did write to Evan Murray and I did say to her, we have the footage of the asylum centre with the windowless rooms, and would you highlight this footage? And the ball is in her court now, and we're going to forward that footage onto RTE and Virgin Media as well. So they need to highlight these things. Now they're going to know this information. And if they don't highlight it, then, we will know, as if we didn't already, that they don't care.
Yes, indeed. So that's it. We just wanted to have our say on how things were reported in the mainstream media today in regards to what happened in Castlebar yesterday. And we weren't involved in anything that we shouldn't have been. You can have your own say as to whether or not we went too far in our question of Enda Kenny and that RTE or that Virgin Media reporter. But at the end of the day, I mean, we don't think we did, and we're always going to take that opportunity to ask these guys questions. And we encourage other people, if you see these guys out and about, if you see your politicians, especially the big ones like Minister for Justice and the Taoiseach, by all means take the opportunity to ask them some questions about what's going on in the country. There's no need to be aggressive or abusive or anything like that. You can just ask them some questions because their silence will tell you everything you need to know. They have it too easy when they speak with mainstream media journalists, and that's why we rely on citizen journalists now to ask the important questions and see what answers they can come up with.